Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're jumping into something truly spectacular, the absolute genius of biological engineering that plants use to conquer some of the most diverse and extreme environments on Earth. I absolutely love this topic because it shows just how dynamic the natural world actually is. You know, plants aren't just sitting there passively, they are actively surviving by design.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever thought about why you can't just uproot a pine tree and stick it in the middle of a parched desert? Or, for that matter, why a cactus wouldn't stand a chance in the freezing polar regions? Well, the simple answer is that those environments just aren't their home. But these biological constraints run way deeper than just a mailing address.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's break it down with a very nice explanation of two foundational concepts. First up, we have a plant's habitat. Think of this as the specific place where a living thing naturally lives and grows. It's their home base. But the real magic? That happens with our second concept, adaptation. To survive in their unique habitats, all plants have to develop special features. Adaptation is basically the ongoing process of adjusting to a habitat. It is nature's ultimate problem-solving mechanism. And depending on that habitat, we broadly split plants into two main squads: terrestrial plants that grow on land and aquatic plants that grow in the water.
So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start with the magic of plant adaptation, move into surviving extreme terrestrial habitats, explore thriving in water worlds, celebrate the mighty grass family, and finally, take a look at the rule breakers, carnivorous, meat-eating plants.
Section 1. Surviving extreme terrestrial habitats, from freezing mountains to parched deserts.
Terrestrial plants are up against a wild array of climates, starting with freezing, hilly mountains. Plants growing in places like Kashmir, Uti, and Himachal Pradesh are known as conifers. To survive that brutal, freezing weather, they completely alter the way they grow and reproduce. They shoot up very tall and very straight, and instead of your typical broad leaves, they've got needle-like leaves to survive the biting cold. Plus, rather than wasting energy on delicate flowers, they bear tough, rugged cones. Trees like pine, cedar, spruce, and fir absolutely nail this survival strategy.
Another major land adaptation is all about the leaves. On one hand, we have deciduous trees, think shisham, neem, teak, and amultas. When it gets incredibly tough to maintain their water balance, like during a freezing winter or a bone-dry warm season, they just drop their leaves. Literally, they shed them entirely once a year. Contrast that with evergreen trees. These guys thrive in coastal areas where the climate is super humid and the water is salty. Trees like coastal teak, coconut, rubber, pepper, and sugarcane don't ever need to shed their leaves, so they stay beautifully green year-round.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the most clever workarounds in nature. Picture a marshy region. The soil is this sticky, thick clay that's entirely submerged in water. That means absolutely zero air for the roots down below. So, what on earth do mangrove trees do? They actively push their roots up and out of the salty mud just to catch a breath. They are literally called breathing roots. I mean, it's an incredibly dynamic solution to a totally static problem.
For our final land example, let's look at the stark contrast between your everyday mango tree and a desert cactus. A mango tree, standard green stem, nice broad leaves. But a cactus grows in the desert where every single drop of water counts. So it brilliantly modified its leaves into sharp spines to lock that water in. And because it ditched its traditional leaves, the green stem actually had to expand, flatten out, and completely take over the job of storing water and doing photosynthesis. It is a total top-to-bottom redesign of the plant's anatomy.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we completely shift gears. Let's look at thriving in water worlds, where life is completely surrounded by water. To understand this, let's lay out a very nice explanation of the three totally distinct types of aquatic plants. First up, floating plants. Things like small green algae, duckweed, pistia, and water hyacinth. They are incredibly light and spongy, which lets them just effortlessly bob on the surface. Next, we have the fixed plants, like the lotus and the water lily. They actually anchor themselves to the muddy bed of the pond, but they use these long, hollow, super light stems to reach up to the top. Their broad leaves just float on the surface, rocking stomata and a special waxy upper layer so the water doesn't plug up their breathing pores. And finally, the submerged plants like tape grass and hydrilla. These guys live their entire lives completely underwater. They've got narrow leaves, absolutely no stomata, and they literally just breathe directly through their body's surface.
You know, those submerged plants I just mentioned have this beautiful symbiotic relationship with the life swimming around them.
Because they are entirely underwater, they actually absorb the carbon dioxide that gets breathed out by aquatic animals. It's this perfectly balanced exchange of gases, and honestly, it's exactly why these plants are so essential for home aquariums.
Real quick, before we leave the water, I have to drop this awe-inspiring fact on you. The aquatic plant holding the heavyweight title for the biggest leaf on Earth is the Victoria Amazonica. The sheer, massive scale of what aquatic adaptation can pull off is just mind-blowing.
Moving on to the mighty grass family, the everyday heroes. Heading back to dry land for a second. When most of us think of grass, we just picture the lawn in our front yard, right? But plants in the grass family, stuff like wheat, maize, and jawar, are arguably the MVPs of the entire plant kingdom. They provide absolutely vital food for humans and animals alike. But it doesn't stop there. Different grasses are manufactured into the paper we write on. They're woven to create mats, baskets, and even huts. And crucially, their deep, tangled root systems physically hold the Earth's soil together. They literally protect our land from washing away during massive rainstorms.
And speaking of grass, here is a number that might totally surprise you. 1. That is the exact number of times bamboo flowers in its entire lifetime. Oh, and by the way, despite its massive size and tough, woody look, bamboo isn't a tree at all. Nope, it's actually a giant member of this exact same mighty grass family.
Finally, let's look at the rule breakers, the carnivorous meat-eating plants.
Let's move to and see how this builds into my absolute favorite section. This is an action-packed micro-story of survival. Why on earth do plants eat meat? Well, step 1 reveals the problem. They live in soil that is horribly deficient in the vital nutrients they need to grow. So they adapt. In step 2, looking at the Venus flytrap, an insect just happens to land on its specially adapted leaf, hitting a tiny trigger. Step 3, snap. The leaf shuts incredibly fast, trapping the insect inside. And finally, step 4, the plant actually digests the insect, absorbing those missing nutrients directly from the bug's body to fuel its own growth. Just wild.
But the Venus flytrap isn't a solo act. There are other brilliant, frankly deadly insectivorous strategies out there. Take the pitcher plant. It literally has leaves shaped like a water pitcher, complete with a little lid. When an unsuspecting insect lands on the mouth, the lid just slams shut, securing the meal inside. Then you have the beautifully lethal sundew plant. Its leaves are covered in these deadly little hairs tipped with sticky droplets. Once an insect gets caught in that sticky trap, it is game over.
So the crucial point is that plants are the ultimate problem solvers. To quickly recap our journey today, we explored the magic of plant adaptation, surviving extreme terrestrial habitats, thriving in water worlds, the mighty grass family, and the carnivorous meat-eating plants.
As we've seen today, plants are definitely not just passive background decorations, whether they are morphing their leaves into sharp spines to beat the desert heat, shoving breathing roots out of a muddy marsh, engineering spongy tissue to float on a pond, or literally building traps to hunt insects, they always find a way to win. So, I want to leave you with this thought. If plants can completely re-engineer their own bodies just to survive, what incredible, invisible biological engineering is happening in the nature in your own backyard right now? Take a closer look the next time you step outside. You might just be amazed at the survival by design happening right under your nose. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and hey, keep exploring.